Now, I want you to notice several other interesting details about this church. First of all, it's called a harlot. In other words, it is a church, but it's an apostate church. Secondly, this is a church that has worldwide extent, global extent. You say, how do we know that? Notice Revelation 17 and verse 1 again. Then one of the 7 angels who had the 7 bowls came and talked with me, saying to me, "Come, I will show you the judgment of the great harlot who sits on many waters." Now, what do the waters that she sits on represent? Well, let's go to verse 15 of chapter 17. It says, "Then he said to me, the waters which you saw where the harlot sits are peoples, multitudes, nations, and tongues." Are those the same groups that the first angel's message goes to? Absolutely. So what is the purpose of the first angel's message? It's to warn people about Babylon and to call people to come out of Babylon. Because the message goes to the same groups of people that Babylon controls and dominates. Are you with me on this point? Now I want you to notice something else that identifies this church, this apostate church. Revelation chapter 17 and verse 2 tells us, "With whom the kings of the earth committed fornication." Is that true of Israel also? Absolutely. "With whom the kings of the earth committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth were made drunk with the wine of her fornication." We'll come back to that later. Let me ask you, is this church involved with the political powers of the world, with the civil powers of the world? Yes, it's not only a church, but it's a church that is involved in the state, or is involved with the kings or rulers of the earth. In other words, it's a church that's involved in political matters. I want you to notice that this harlot, this apostate church, also has daughters, just like Israel had daughters that shared her spirit. Notice Revelation chapter 17 and verse 5. Revelation 17 and verse 5. "And on her forehead," this is of the harlot, "a name was written, Mystery, Babylon the Great." The what? The mother of harlots and of the abominations of the earth. Now, if she is the mother of harlots, must she have daughters who are also harlots? Absolutely. At some point in her history, she had daughters. After she had existed for a while, she had daughters that share many of the practices and teachings that she embraced or that she has. In other words, it's a system that has daughters. Notice also the colors that this apostate church majors in. Revelation chapter 17 and verse 4. "The woman was arrayed in what? In purple and scarlet." What are the predominant colors that are used by this religious organization? Purple and scarlet. I want you to notice that she doesn't use blue. You'll never find blue in this system. And you say, why don't you find blue? Let's go to Numbers 15, verses 38 to 41. Numbers 15, 38 to 41. I'm going to tell you now why this system majors in purple and scarlet, but does not use blue.